January 17, 1917, London, a grey morning at the Admiralty, and a cable from Berlin carried a promise that could redraw a map. If the United States entered the war against Germany, Mexico should join Germany and, in return, recover Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The hinge was this: the moment a private encrypted message became a public fact that Americans could read, believe, and react to. An intercept is a captured copy of a message taken in transit. Codebreakers then try to turn the symbols back into words. British signals officers had been watching transatlantic cables since the war began, because early on they cut Germany's own lines and forced German traffic onto neutral routes. That meant Berlin often used an American diplomatic cable, still carrying German messages in cipher via Washington to reach embassies abroad. On January 16th, the German Foreign Office sent instructions to its mission in Mexico City. Room 40, the British code-breaking unit, obtained the ciphertext through taps and relays and set to work. They already knew much of an older German codebook and had fragments of a newer one, which meant the text yielded in pieces. When the first clean sentences emerged, they saw the offer to Mexico and a note urging contact with Japan. Because the weather of politics was shifting, Germany was about to resume unrestricted submarine warfare on February 1st. Any document that tied American security to the war could tilt opinion. But there was a verification dilemma. If Britain simply printed the message, it would reveal that British intelligence was reading German ciphers and, worse for trust, had been looking into American cable traffic while the United States was still neutral. If the United States saw only a translation, skeptics could claim forgery. If they waited too long, the moment to sway opinion might pass. There were alternatives. Britain could keep the intercept secret and use it only for its own diplomacy, but that left American voters in the dark. Or Britain could share it privately with the US president and hope for quiet persuasion, but without public proof, the impact would be limited and deniable. Therefore, British officers searched for a way to show the message without exposing how they had read it. Over several weeks, they built a plausible path. Agents arranged to access a copy of the telegram as it had been handled in Mexico. Telegraph offices kept traffic logs, and that second route allowed Britain to claim a source other than secret cable taps. Inside the Admiralty, the codebreakers also produced a version that could be shown to Americans line by line, so they could see where each phrase came from. On February 24th, British officials handed the decoded text to the American ambassador in London with an explanation designed to protect sources while making verification possible. He forwarded it to Washington. Now the question moved from, "Is this real?" to, "How do we prove it without using British secrets?" American officials compared the British decode to what they could trace through commercial records and found the routing and timing matched. The message had indeed originated in Berlin and passed through Washington to Mexico City. It took days of cautious checking because no one wanted to bet a nation's policy on a fake. Then came the choice to publish. On March 1st, 1917, the text appeared in major US newspapers. It was short, direct, and unmistakable in meaning. A foreign power, anticipating possible war with the United States, had proposed that a neighboring country attack the United States in exchange for pieces of American territory. Public reaction arrived in a single sentence. Shock turned quickly into anger. The debate over authenticity could have smoldered, but it did not. Early in March, the German Foreign Secretary openly confirmed the telegram's authorship, insisting it was a contingency, not a provocation. Admission that closed the door on claims of fabrication. Before publication, the trigger was just an intercepted cable. The underlying causes were months of submarine warfare, strained neutrality, and British efforts to bring American power into the war. After publication, the pressure on American leaders intensified. Because citizens could now quote the proposal in their own newspapers, the conversation moved from elite circles into public meetings, factory floors, and city streets. In the short window from late February to early April, the telegram and the sinking of neutral shipping reinforced each other. Congress debated measures to arm merchant ships. State and local papers ran explainers on the border, on Mexico's capacity to fight, and on the larger war. Mexico, facing its own internal challenges, had no appetite for the proposal. That too entered the American discussion, which meant the threat was seen as real in intent, even if unlikely in execution. One rounded metric helps fix the tempo. From the Berlin transmission on January 16th to the newspaper headlines on March 1st was about 6 weeks. In that span, cryptanalysis, diplomacy, and editorial decision compressed into a single story arc. Because the British protected their methods, they did not burn the program that had given them so much information across the war. Because American officials insisted on verification, they avoided the trap of acting on rumor. And because the text itself was clear, ordinary readers could judge it without expert guidance. Some details still draw debate among historians, exactly which partial codebooks mattered most, or how the second copy in Mexico was accessed. But those uncertainties do not change the sequence: intercept, decryption, verification, publication. The immediate outcome was political acceleration. Americans who had argued for strict neutrality now had to address a document that spoke directly to American territory and security. Opinion polls were crude by today's standards, yet letters to editors, crowded town halls, and congressional correspondence reflected a swing toward intervention. Within weeks, official steps followed that swing. On April 6, 1917, the United States declared war on Germany. That date lies just beyond our narrow window, but it is the long-tail consequence of a cable that crossed the Atlantic and, once decoded, crossed a line in American opinion. This turning point still matters because it shows how information, captured, confirmed, and carefully released, can move a democracy from caution to commitment. One message in the right 6-week frame changed the center of gravity in a national debate. If you want more moments where a single choice or discovery redirects history, like and subscribe for more from Vanguard Law.